Welcome to another episode of DIOTALK. I'm Dio. Let's talk. My guest of the evening is an author. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome William R. Douglas, the author of Death and Resurrection of Baseball.
Thanks, Dio, for having me on your show. Looking forward to the conversation.
It's an honor. It's an honor. How are you?
I'm good. I'm outstanding, actually. So
That's great. That's great.
yeah, I had a little medical test earlier today, and I got the results back, and it's all good. So
God bless.
especially happy.
God bless.
Especially
God bless. I meant to that. That's the
Yeah.
most important part.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me, what inspired you to write this book? Because it's you gave it a title. It's a very interesting title, The
Yes.
Death and Resurrection of
Title.
Baseball.
The title is a real grabber.
Yes.
So well, it's a futuristic novel. It takes place 140 years in the future. And what has happened is that the sport of baseball has died and has become extinct. And specifically in our time, 40 years from now, a second American Civil War has led to the final death of the sport. It's a proverbial nail in the coffin. And fast forward 100 years from then, and our hero is a 12-year-old boy by the name of Joe Scott, and he lives in the city of McHenry here where I live. And he goes exploring in the woods of an old battlefield from the time of the war, which in his time is 100 years in the past. And he finds a relic from before the war that winds up having a tie back to the extinct game of baseball. And a sequence of events begins to occur where he becomes the conduit of trying to resurrect the game of baseball, because there's no one alive that has any memory of the sport whatsoever.
Wow.
The idea for the story came about a couple things. One was an article that I read several years ago about games that kids used to play before the American Civil War of the 1860s. And those games are extinct and they become lost to history. And so that kind of planted a seed in me once. It'd be kind of interesting to write a novel, something along those lines. But at the time, I didn't know it was going to be baseball. That happened later. What happened later was began to read stories about the popularity of baseball, particularly at the youth level, has continued to trend downward.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a trend that's been going on for several years now. And so finally, I had a what if idea. What if this downward trend in the popularity of baseball were to continue, taken out 40 years from now, and the sport actually dies. And then that was the foundation of the story of the book, was that the sport dies indeed 40 years from now. Again, there's a second war that helps really seal its fate. And then 100 years later, this young boy comes along and becomes the conduit to try and restore the sport to America's culture and lexicon.
Wow, that's amazing. It's quite a journey. Did it take you quite some time to write it, or as soon as you got inspired, it was just smooth sailing?
Yeah, the actual writing part took 4 years. So I began in September of 2016. I finished in September of 2020 during the first year of the pandemic.
Mm.
I think I was probably with a lot of people that had either a book started or wanted to write a book, and they took advantage of that.
Yes,
Time
yes.
to put it all together. So 4 years to write it, about another year to go through the editing process, and then getting ready to get it published. Prior to starting to write in 2016, there were several other inputs that also seeded the storyline. One was back in the 1990s, I read David Aikman's novel, When the Almond Tree Blossoms. David Aikman was a senior foreign correspondent for the New York Times,
Mhm.
and he wrote a book again called When the Almond Tree Blossoms. It was a fiction story about a second civil war that's based on the cultural divide between liberals and conservatives. And that was a very powerful read for me that really stuck with me because I think if you go back in time, you can really look at the 1990s as the beginnings of our current cultural divide and divisiveness here in America right now, particularly when you talk about the political divisions.
Yeah.
Uh, Another novel I read much later, probably about 7 years ago, was William Fortune's novel One Second After. That was also a fiction novel that came out about an EMP attack on the United States that cripples the country. So some elements from those two novels were also important in germinating the storyline that I have in my novel, The Death and Resurrection of Baseball.
So at what point did you realize or you told yourself this is what I want to do regarding baseball? What point did you connect the storyline with the actual with baseball?
Yeah, sure. Probably late 2015, early 2016, all these things started to coalesce in my mind about, well, what if baseball were to die? How would it die? How long would it take to die? What external forces could come to bear against it to help accelerate its demise? And a couple of things that I came up with was the popularity of video games, the accelerating popularity of soccer, and
Mhm.
lately in the game of lacrosse. The game of lacrosse is really starting to gain interest in the youth as well. Um, so all those things mixed together, uh, and then finally in the summertime of 2016, I pretty much had the framework for the story in my mind, and finally put down the words of chapter one,
Wow.
starting in September of 2016.
Wow. And to give it such name, you have to be a baseball fanatic.
Oh yeah, big baseball fan. I've been a baseball fan all my life. Kind of late in the game of writing. I'm 63.
Hey,
Uh,
it's never late. It's never late.
right when I came of age in the 60s, and just it was still part of the golden era of baseball, and just played a lot of baseball every day almost if I could. Played a lot of sandlot ball to start out with. And it was that repetition playing sandlot ball where I really learned the game well and began to hone the skills required to play the game and to have fun playing it.
Wow.
And then later on, got involved in Little League with my dad and my brother. Played a
Awesome.
lot of
Awesome.
Little League. And then later on in my adult life, got involved playing in a church softball league. So I continue to play ball, but it's a 12-inch slow pitch softball.
Hey, I've been there. What's your favorite position to play?
You know, if we go back to the beginning, my favorite as a youngster was third base and left field
Hmm.
and pitching. And then later on, as an adult, I've been pitching most of my softball career. So I've enjoyed being a pitcher. My best game was a 2-hit shutout playing slow pitch
Nice,
softball. So
nice,
I had
nice.
I had a no hitter going through 5 innings, and then they finally got a couple of hits. So
Oh man.
that was fun. I came in, I don't know, it was the fourth or fifth inning of that game, and I sat down, and one of my teammates whispered to the coach, "Does the other side have any hits?" And the coach is a lady friend of mine. She put her finger up and she goes, "Shh, don't say anything."
Yeah, I grew up. I grew up in Puerto Rico, so behind my house there was a basketball court and a baseball field. So
Uh-huh.
majority of the time, when we weren't playing basketball, we were playing softball.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember there was a very long period of time in where like nobody played softball, and like I want to say in a span maybe 10, 12 years.
Uh-huh.
And then out of nowhere, because we had access to the lights,
Right,
uh, I think it started either Monday or Tuesday, right? And where we started with a small like tennis ball,
right.
and because
Sure.
we were poor, we took I think it was like some type of broomstick, and then
Uh-huh.
evolved to something else, and we started playing two base. It was
Sure.
second, third, and home, and it
Uh-huh.
was small crowd. And then,
Sure.
I want to say 2 weeks passed, and more people started coming. The more people started coming, then people from other barrios started coming, and next thing you know, like the whole city started a softball league.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I take pride in
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We were somewhat similar. I had a large group of buddies growing up in the town of Oak Lawn, Illinois, which is a near southwest suburb of the city of Chicago. And there was an empty lot on the other side, one block over down at the corner, and we went there and played a lot. We also played out in the street in front of our house, our childhood home. Fortunately, we always had access to a bat, but sometimes we'd use a tennis ball, sometimes a rubber ball.
Hey, you got to improvise just to have
Uh,
fun.
sometimes a league ball, but the cover was shot, so you tape it up with electrical tape.
Yeah,
Uh,
make it work. Make it work.
make it work,
I,
make it work.
I I get it. I get it.
Yep.
I've been there so many
Pitcher's hand
times.
out, right field out. The whole bit, the whole
And
bit.
sometimes we would play with no gloves. We had no gloves,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever we had. I remember one time we took a yarn ball, and
Mm-hmm.
because they come big, we just tape it up with black tape.
Sure.
Then we
Yeah.
put some I think duct tape, and we
Right.
play like that.
Right.
Make it
So
work.
we would play with a little, two people on a side. So,
Yeah,
but we made it
that's
work.
fun times.
We had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
A lot of
that's the
fun.
most important part.
Yep.
I feel that a lot of this new generation up and coming, they it's a lot of video games, a lot of tablets, a lot of cell
Uh-huh.
phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up very poor, but I could say I had a childhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could say we play hide and go seek, we play tag, right? We played
Sure. Yep.
sports,
Same here. Same
right?
here. My dad was a working class blue collar guy. He worked for American Airlines. We grew up in a small 3-bedroom ranch house with a crawl space, in a small detached garage, and yeah, we made it work. We made it work.
Yeah, and that's how we're supposed to, right? Make the best at what we
Yeah,
have,
sure.
and enjoy and recreate beautiful moments.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure if it's because I'm getting older, or I'm a father already, or just sometimes I sit and just look through other people's eyes, see how the world's forming, and man, if I can go back and just relive what one moment, let me go play hide and seek with my friends. Let me go
yeah,
play tag, because it's
yeah,
like it was so
yeah.
uh innocent.
Yes, there's an age of innocence for sure, for sure.
We were just kids.
We would, particularly in the summertime where we lived. I mean, we would come home. If we were still in school, we'd come home, do our homework, and then we'd be gone until supper time, and then we'd be out again till our parents call us in for bedtime. But then when school was out, I mean, we'd be gone the entire day. I mean, we might come home for lunch or whatever, but it was just a time where you could do that. You could go ride your bike, a couple blocks over or down the street to
Yeah.
a ball field and not have to worry about problems.
Yeah. 100%. I get it.
Yeah.
Now, while you were writing this book, at any moment, like, did you get nostalgia? Did you
Oh,
relive
sure. Oh,
relive
absolutely.
moments?
Absolutely. There's a particular scene in the book that's actually modeled after an event that I had as a kid, and it's early in the book, so I don't mind sharing it with your listeners. But
Go ahead, go right
uh,
ahead.
when we were still playing sandlot ball, one street over at the corner lot, I we had a like I said, we had a group of friends and we play out every day. And this one friend of mine, he challenged me. He says, "Hey, I'm going to strike you out. Let's go down to the lot. I want to pitch. I'm going to strike you out." I'm like, "Game on, bro. Let's go." So I got my brother together with a couple other guys, and we all go traipsing down to that field. And this guy, he was so sure he was going to strike me out. So uh, he goes out to the mound, gets his warm ups in, and I step up to the plate. I wish I could remember the count or what pitch it was, but it's lost to history. It was 50 plus years ago. So,
Yeah.
but he throws in a pitch, and I connected with this thing, and I remember, it just you want to talk about the launch angle. So this thing just took off. Excuse me, and it cleared a row of trees on the edge of the lot and went over the top of the trees. And so that was my big moment to where I could run around the base and
Nice.
pump my fist in the air. Well, uh, almost identical story I put in the book where the hero Joe Scott does something similar. So that was definitely a nostalgic moment that I put in the story that happened to me personally.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And like, is there, now that you're a little bit more older, and as you get older, you see things differently. Do you realistic see in real life, right, a possible ending to, like, the the end of baseball? Is that something that can be possible?
Well, I don't want to deceive your listeners. I don't think that immediately. And when
Hmm.
I say immediately, I like definitely not next year, 5 years, 10 years from now. Do I think that baseball could become extinct? And absolutely not. But here's what I see as a troubling trend that was a major contribution to the what if proposal that led to the story. Now, in youth ball, what's going on is there's two things that are happening in youth ball uh, that are very detrimental to the sport. Number one is sandlot ball has disappeared. You just don't go around a neighborhood and see kids playing ball in a ball field unless they're under adult supervision in a league. You just don't see pickup games of ball anymore. I'm not saying that sandlot ball is totally dead everywhere.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't. I don't have any evidence for that, but I do have evidence just from talking to a lot of people and podcasters like yourself that are fans of the game, that where they live, they don't see kids playing ball in fields anymore. So that's one issue. The other issue is what I call either the city league or maybe you call it a house league, where it's the local ball club league in the town where you live. Those leagues are seeing diminishing numbers of kids sign up to play ball. And a lot of those leagues have actually folded, they have vanished.
Hmm.
Um, I was on the air a short time ago with a gentleman who grew up in the Detroit area, a town of 100,000 people. And he said that he had four little leagues when he was growing up, and one at every compass heading. And now they're down to one. And that one is barely surviving. And just where I live, there was at one time three little leagues in the 1990s, late 1990s, when my son was playing ball and I was a coach, and now we're down to one. And so, and when you go online and do research, you see this story repeating itself over and over across the country, where the house leagues are diminishing in size or they're disappearing altogether. Now, what is happening is that travel ball has grown tremendously in popularity. But there's a problem with travel baseball. And the biggest problem, well, there's a couple of problems with travel baseball. Number one is that it cannot take on the numbers of a house league. The travel ball is typically a team of 12 to 15 kids, and you try out for it. And you have to be good enough to make the team. Otherwise, you get cut.
Mhm.
So you try out, you don't make it, you get cut. Hopefully, there's a house league in town. If not, then you're out of luck. You've got to know where to go to play ball. The other issues with travel ball is the cost. There's a cost involved that's significantly higher than a house league. And you're talking, usually well over $1,200 for a child to play in a travel ball league. And that doesn't include your travel expenses, because a lot of times you're traveling out of town, you gotta pay for hotel, gas, food, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other issue with that, obviously, is that affects the ability of lower middle income to low income families from being able to put a child into
Yeah.
baseball, because the cost is a serious issue. And so you take that whole big thing all together and put that right here, right?
Mhm.
And then you have the issue of the increased popularity of video games, uh, the increased popularity of soccer, and other sports. Now, soccer in particular, I think, as continues to explode in popularity. And when you look at it, no offense to all the soccer fans out there, but when you try and have a 6 or 7 year old kid stand at a home plate and a ball is traveling at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, and he has to try and hit it with a bat. And oh, by the way, the ball could hit you in the head and it might hurt you, or it might hit you in the shoulder or whatever. But
Mhm.
that's a tough thing to ask a kid to do, versus going out on a soccer field and to learn how to kick a ball that's significantly larger than a baseball. Now, again, no disrespect, there's still a lot of skill involved in playing soccer. I totally get it. I have grandkids that are involved in soccer, so no disrespect there. But when you try to have a child trying to play baseball, it's significantly harder, I think, for them to pick up the game, particularly hitting the ball, uh, than some other sports are.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, 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 I totally. It's a,
So then putting all that together,
yeah,
40 years from now, I mean, what happens? So
yeah,
you have
yeah. The
a
opportunity,
diminishing, you have a
yeah,
diminishing
diminishes.
pool, a diminishing pool of kids playing. They grow up, and then you have a diminishing pool of adult fans that like the game. So now you have a diminishing fan base at the professional level. And so, the idea of a what if, to me, is plausible. And so hence my story.
Yeah, no, I totally understand the opportunity of a child, uh, at least trying to play
Yeah.
baseball has diminished, and where it used to be a place in where you needed a break to take your kid as a parent, let him play baseball, or you
Yeah.
want him to start getting into sports, take him play
Sure.
baseball, and it's become something more than just make I don't want to say a money scheme, but something to make a profit out of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where the travel ball
Mm-hmm.
scenario, I mean, it's good in one way, because when you have that upper tier of talent and ability to to play the game. Certainly travel ball prepares you to play the ball, the game of ball in high school and college, and who knows after that, you know. But as far as being able to host a lot of kids recreationally,
Hmm.
travel ball does not have that capability. It just doesn't have the capability to host hundreds of kids in recreationally for baseball. That's for the house league and comes into play. And then, you know, in my day, sandlot ball, because, you know,
Hmm.
if you don't need adults, you just go show up with your buddies, then you can have fun playing ball. But the kids just don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of it's like if they're not playing baseball, they're quickly going to football or basketball.
Yeah.
Those are
Sure,
the two main things, you know.
sure.
The MLB, it's full with majority what I've seen, it's a lot of Hispanics from other countries playing baseball. There's
Uh-huh.
not really really any, you know, American, you know, born and bred here. A lot of them go straight to football,
Yeah,
or you know, when it's time for the draft, they graduate college or university. You know, they football or basketball. Those are
yeah,
the two most popular things now. So you
sure.
really won't. Yeah, it's there's a possibility that the sport could be or maybe diminished in some point.
Well, yeah, I would say it already is diminished
Hmm.
because it's certainly not getting the same TV ratings it used to get,
Hmm.
nor is it getting the same fan attendance at the professional level. You can see that in the charts when you go out and do some research. Um, on my author site, author WilliamRDouglas.com, there's even I put 10 articles on the blog page where it talks about uh, you know the popularity of the sport diminishing and you know, and these are different articles from different areas of the country. They're not all focused on one area.
Yeah,
So if your fans of your show want to take a look, they can go read up some of these articles and see what I'm talking about.
yeah, and also, you know, I think we live in a time and where I think there's a difference between back then. It was like you win, you lose. You know, build character,
Yeah,
personal development. You know,
yeah,
now, you
right.
know, and not to judge anybody, but you know, mostly schools and whatnot give a ribbon of participation and where everybody gets one.
Sure, sure. And also, you know, when we played just amongst our friends without adult intervention or supervision, you know, we learned very important skills. We learned conflict resolution. Think about that.
Yeah.
You had a conflict on the field, you know, runners out and all runners safe, and you had to come to a resolution in order to continue to play the game. So I mean, so that you learn that skill playing the game. You learned you know, the skills of teamwork and also being prepared, right? I mean, you got to be prepared to go play the game, which is kind of a euphemism for life. I mean, you got to be prepared to play the game of life because
Hmm.
it's tough out there.
Yeah, it teaches you how to work with others, network with
Right.
others as well, uh, how to play safe because you know it's that's all falls in that character development. You know,
Yeah.
because you could be losing, but you have to compose yourself in a certain way that you can't walk out like you're a sore loser.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, yet again, character building. You know, that's one of the things. Like my favorite sport was basketball.
Sure.
You know, not everybody knows it because I don't speak about it, but you know, I used to get down. I'm very competitive, and
Sure.
with baseball too, and that, building that you know, character development that helped me uh deal with certain situations in life.
Sure.
Knowing how to communicate, teamwork, like you said, that's all those things are very uh really fundamental things one should learn as you get older
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
continue to live and its world.
Sure. Absolutely. When you look at, you know, of all the sports still being played at the youth level, basketball has got a bright future because the kids are still playing pickup games of basketball, whether it's 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, whatever. But you can still see kids, if there's a basketball court in town, in a park or wherever, you can still see them playing without adult supervision. So that's a very healthy thing for the sport of basketball. Now, in my book, I put those components in there about teamwork and stuff like that, where the kids are trying to figure out the sport of baseball because they have no one that can teach them. And so that's an element early on in the story where they're trying to work together to try and figure things out. So
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. I've just, how do I even say this? Growing up, because I lived in my community wasn't key one, but there were certain communities they focus on sports and recreation.
uh-huh,
And you have these people that uh would do the sport, speak and teach with so much passion.
uh-huh,
Even if they never made it to big leagues or anything, they would speak with love and passion,
uh-huh.
right? And I find it now in days that it's not there. Everything's a profit.
Right.
Everything
Yeah.
is you have to win. There's no values. There's not that climax and where you had to, bust your put in the work. Everything's it's a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you ever saw Moneyball with Brad Pitt and Jonah
Yep.
Hill,
Yep. Yep.
which that technique was from that point forward, if I correct me if I'm wrong, they started implementing that technique of Moneyball.
Yeah.
Buy wins, buy,
Sure.
you know. So I think that has killed the game in a sense, and where this is why it has decreased in a sense also.
Absolutely. It's an excellent point because when you talk to adults that by their own admission used to be fans of the game, a common thread is that they've been turned off by the whole money thing
Mm-hmm.
that has I think poisoned the game. I was talking the other day about shoeless Joe Jackson from the White Sox scandal and how he was banned from baseball for life for gambling.
Mm-hmm.
And now you go to a ballpark and there's gambling signs on the outfield wall.
Oh man, every 5
And,
seconds.
and it's like, what is going on here? I mean, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the famous commissioner of baseball, he was the guy that banned Shoeless Joe for life. But he's got to be rolling over his grave. I mean, um, it's not to say that I am a rabid anti-gambler, but the fact that you
The
still have
times
people.
have evolved. The times have evolved because at one point it wasn't permitted, but now that's all you get.
Right, but the you still have Pete Rose,
Mm-hmm.
who has repeatedly apologized for betting on games,
Who's that? The
trying to get into
Cincinnati manager.
yeah, he was Cincinnati Reds, and they won't let him in. But then there's the hypocrisy of the fact that you go to the Red Stadium and there's gambling signs, all over the
Yeah,
ballpark.
yeah. No, I agree.
And adults see this. They're not stupid. They see this and they see the hypocrisy, or they see other things regarding the whole money issue of professional sports in particular, and it becomes a turnoff for them. So and that's another factor that helps put a chink in the armor of the
See,
popularity.
with that right there, I don't think the problem was that he was gambling. I think the problem is that he was gambling and the MLB wasn't able to profit.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't.
because if business wise, like if it's like the taxes. The government, if you don't get taxed, you're not paying the government, you're in problem. They get
Yeah,
mad because they're not taking their cut.
yeah, yeah,
Because if we live in an age of 2022 and where gambling is acceptable everywhere. I
Uh-huh.
think it's time to cut the man some slacks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he was somebody that wasn't good at baseball
Oh, he was
or didn't earn
one
those
of the best ever
merits,
played a game.
right?
He was one of the best that ever played a game.
I mean, Michael Jordan probably did the same thing, but nobody, they're not going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was, and he's a high gambler.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
One thing I want to touch upon too was that, in my book, all that all that junk is missing. What you have is you have this 12-year-old boy and his buddies, just like you remember when you were playing in Puerto Rico, like when I was playing in Oak Lawn as kids. They just fall in love with the game and they just want
yes,
to play the game for the love of the game. The
yes,
money thing's gone. And when it doesn't matter if they win or lose, they all come together and they have a good time. They shake hands, and it's for the love of the game is what catches their attention. And that clearly comes out in the story because people that are reading it, they're like, wow, this really brought back childhood memories of playing ball and you can really see just the love of the game and the storyline. So I think I was successful in bringing that element to the story.
wow, and that's important. That's
Yeah,
important.
absolutely.
You made me relive my when I went through my own journey, and where one of the reasons as a kid we all stopped playing is because it wasn't fun anymore. All grown-ups came and took
Hmm.
over the park.
Uh-huh.
People who didn't even care about the park out of nowhere came now, are managing it,
Uh-huh.
and everything's winning. We're taking people, original players out, bringing other players from other barrios, put them in there because they wanted to win. And the
Yeah.
whole sole purpose was we just wanted to have fun,
Yeah. Right.
and like in the environment I grew up in, it was very it was not appropriate for children to uh grow up in that environment.
Uh-huh.
So when we had these activities, it was like everything else didn't matter. We were just being kids.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And once grown-ups came and started managing and doing their own thing, it kind of like just it died for us.
Yeah. 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 Well, and getting back to the story, I mean, that part really doesn't happen. It's the kids managing themselves and learning the game themselves, and then trying to impart their knowledge to other kids to try and help get other kids involved. So that's a very important part of the story.
Dude, is
Now,
it?
the other thing too is that I don't want to mislead the readers either, because I don't want them to think that this is some you know depressing tale about a second civil war and all this the whole thing's horrible. No, that's all been in the past. That's all in the past. The story starts. America's at peace, and it has recovered to a point where it was before the war. So there's self-driving cars, there's domesticated robots, stuff like that. But yet there's still this mix of old and new, and there's been kind of a reset with the family, that I put in the storyline as well, because um, one thing I see happening with the family dynamics now is that particularly the old custom of the family dinner time. I don't know what your life was like as a young boy, but when I was growing up, every night without fail, the whole family gathered around and had supper together. And it was a very important time to carve out and sit down at their dinner table and break bread and share in the day's triumphs and tragedies and the mundane parts of your day, and then also to encourage one another.
Mhm.
It was a very I think therapeutic practice that we had to all sit down at dinner table and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the food, and again to listen and to be heard and to encourage one another. And I think what we have today, you have a lot of families where, a meal is in a fast food line on the way to a ballet practice or
Yeah.
basketball practice or choir practice or whatever practice, and then somebody's home eating alone, and then it's their turn to go out later, and you got all this disjointed scheduling going on that keeps the family from gathering together on a regular basis, especially at mealtime. And so I weave that back into the fabric of the culture of this future America after it's recovered from the war. This is a very important time to sit down at dinner time and to and engage in all that positive stuff I just mentioned.
I like it because is hearing based on what you're saying is like it brings so much value, especially
Absolutely.
family values.
Absolutely. And just think about, well, when you go out just with friends or immediate family, go out to dinner somewhere, and how, I mean, I would say 99.9% of the times you come back and you feel good. You
Yeah.
feel good. So if you're having this on a daily basis in the home, especially with young kids, that is incredibly valuable for a child to grow up with that kind of memory and experience, just around something as simple as the family dinner.
Yeah. I look forward reading this book. It's I feel like this is, a book like this is what we need right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I am, full disclosure, I am self-published, so I'm the
Nice.
marketing director. So it's very important for me to get out front and programs like yourself. So I'm very, very grateful, Dio, for your extension of an invitation to come on your show and talk about the book. And then the other thing that helps is obviously word of mouth and getting the word out there, and getting those reviews on Amazon, because they really do help the rankings and the sales. And hopefully this thing can get ahead of steam, because it is a very entertaining book, but also there is a deeper message in there that I think would benefit the country, really, to get it out there and have people have these discussions about, faith and family and the current divisions in the country and where we could be headed, unless something comes along to alter the trajectory that the country is on right now, because that's also very concerning.
Yeah, 100%. Um, one last question before we go. If you had one word advice, right, to anyone in the world that is struggling and needs something to inspire them, what would you say? What would your advice be?
To inspire them.
Yeah.
Um, well, if they have a passion for something that they haven't really fully developed, to begin pursuing that. Like, for instance, if they've ever aspired to write a book, sit down and start writing, you know, or if there's some other thing that they've had a passion for, to take whatever steps they could to start pursuing that passion. Um, Also, as far as inspiration, well, I'm a man of faith. I'm not afraid to admit that. And I think that faith plays a very important part in a human being's life, especially, getting that true north compass heading. It can really uh, inspire one to succeed in life and to become a valuable asset to the community.
Oh, very important. Um, Before we go, tell the people where they can find the book, they can find you, and chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, author WilliamRDouglas.com. That's my author WilliamRDouglas.com portal. There's social media links out there. There's links to Amazon, Apple, and Barnes and Noble. There's also a really powerful book trailer on the front page of
Yes, go check
website.
that out. Yes.
It's getting very, very good reviews. It's had over 5,000 views already, just the book trailer alone. It really helps very quickly through a little synopsis of the story of the book. So, and then there's also, when you go there, you can contact me by email. I'll definitely respond if you want to reach out to me. So, but yeah, a lot of good stuff out there. Author WilliamRDouglas.com, where you can just go to Amazon and search for The Death and Resurrection of Baseball.
Boom, there you go. Go support him. Go read this amazing book. Go purchase. Go show some love and support, and say hi. Have a good night, guys. I'm out.
Thanks, Theo. Been a
Thank you.
pleasure.